Stephanie, thank you for joining me here today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, I'm so excited to do this.
I know, right?
It's so important that businesses understand grants.
Right.
So thank you so much for inviting me to chat about that.
Certainly. I think that it would be great if you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure.
Tell us a little about yourself, Granted Consulting, a little bit of your journey, and what do you offer? Like, what does Granted Consulting do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So my name is Stephanie Sang, and I am a born and raised Vancouverite. Really, started out in business and then moved to Taiwan for about 10 years after university. And at that point in my journey, I recognized that, wow, there's actually a lot of grant funding programs that were available in Asia. Fast forward, came back, married, had my first kid, and realized how many businesses in Canada did not know that there were government grant funding programs or support programs. Being a visible minority, this was a big deal. I could probably tell that some of my friends who had connections with other businesses, they knew, but my community of Chinese Canadians did not know. So I started researching and finding there's a program here that will help businesses with hiring. Here's a program that will help you with training. And so when you add those savings up over the course of time, it really can change your business.
Right.
So that's how I started, is just one grant at a time. And I call my business Granted because, and a lot of people would ask me oh, is your last name Granted? It's nope, my last name is not Granted. It's called Granted because I love Oprah. And so she's giving away cars, and I'm you've been granted, and you've been granted. And so it's just done, right? That's the way of doing it. So we've been around for 13 years now, based here in Vancouver with a team that's we have people in Calgary, we've got somebody in Kelowna as well, and really kind of focused on helping small businesses access government grants.
That's fantastic. So government grants.
Yeah.
At any level?
Any level, I would say small business is kind of our repertoire. So we recognize that the larger, multinationals that are 500 plus employees probably don't need a few $1,000s. But yes, definitely at any level. I will say we have two levels of service. So one is more now tech driven, and that's for smaller businesses, probably under 20 employees, where they're just hey, I want to be able to identify what are the grant programs for my business, and I could apply for some, but I might need help for others.
Right.
So that is called Granted Starter. And we built that technology about 5 years ago, and really looking to find a way to make it a lot more accessible for more businesses. And then we have our pro or boutique consulting, which really helps businesses navigate through the process. We help with the grant writing, we help with the claims. Larger grants, yeah. Definitely want companies that need a little bit more of a build up in terms of there's 4 grants here that we could use, and there's 2 other ones here. And so creating that strategy for those larger businesses is important.
And that's a really great segue to my next question, because a lot of our businesses struggle to just find grants.
Yeah.
So I think your first technology-driven database is really good for our businesses. We found a lot of our businesses really needed support in just trying to find, where can I access grants?
Right.
What is available to me?
Yeah.
At the municipal or provincial or federal level.
Yes.
What is there out there? And I know that we offered subsidies actually for our businesses to get onboarded on your platform. They really enjoyed that experience. They found it user friendly.
Yeah.
So it's one that I often recommend to small business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think sourcing grants is one of the key things. It's you don't really know. It's a little bit of pie in the sky. You don't really know what you can qualify for. So the way that we built the technology is by industry, so we want to be able to filter the grants by your industry, maybe by the size of your business or the age of your business. Even sometimes the location within, are you on the island or are you in Kelowna? Those make a difference in terms of the types of programs you could access. So finding grants really is identifying first what your business needs. So not doing it the other way around, right? You don't want to be oh, there's $1 million grant here. I could do that.
Yeah.
But rather taking a look at what it is that your business is looking to do, identifying, okay, here's a grant that will allow me to hire someone or allow me to pay for some training that I need to send one of my staff members to. And then as a result of that, you'll be able to then source grants that actually match your business needs and not the other way around.
So would you say that is a strategy for most small businesses to look at what do I need? and what is out there that's going to match that and help me level. Because I think that there's an unrealistic expectation about what a grant can do for a for-profit business.
Sure.
Can you speak a little bit about that kind of strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first got into grants, it was like, oh, you must work with a lot of nonprofit organizations and charities. And I actually said, there's actually a lot of money for for-profit businesses as well. Right. So that's been our niche the whole time. I think with for-profit businesses, you have this business plan that you have. And maybe every year you take a look at it and you go, okay, this year we're going to go and expand into a new market, or we're looking to hire 2 people, or we're going to, invest in technology. Let's say these are the 3 core things you want to do. Well, there's usually a timing of that, right, Narissa? Like Q1, we're going to do this. You're not going to do everything all in the first quarter. So Q1, we're going to do this. Q2, we're going to do this. And it is a matter of sourcing the right grants at the right time. And as opposed to like, oh, I see that there's maybe funding later in the year. Let me hold off on everything that I'm doing and just wait for that funding to come through. Because if it doesn't come through, that becomes a little bit of an issue.
Right.
So what we recommend companies do is take a look at what their business plan is, what their annual plan is, and then parse it out by quarter. Q1, what are you looking to do? Then focus on those grants and searching for those grants that match those needs. And then Q2, you might have something different. Now, there needs to be some flexibility.
Do you support that?
Yeah, I think it's important, right? Because...
No, sorry. Do you support, does your business support helping another business strategize on when to focus on, like that basically that grant business plan almost is what you're explaining, is what I'm hearing from you, right? So do you offer those type of services?
We do for the pro clients, and the reason is because there's more programs that they could be utilizing throughout the year. Yeah. So often there would be 3 grants that they could be utilizing, and we would dissect like, well, which one actually makes the most sense for them? Maybe it's a student hiring grant, and they are hiring people for 2 terms. Well, some grants might not allow for that, so then that will then help the client make the decision about which one to move forward with. But I think this is something that any small business can do kind of on their own. You don't need to have a consultant next to you to do that. Just look at what your plan is, figure out what quarter, what do you want to be doing, and then at those points in time, go and look for the right resources. Right. And this is a little bit of expectation management as well, because not all the grants are grant funding programs where the money comes directly into your business. Right. I think that's a misnomer, and something that I had to learn and really kind of confirm, because being a visible minority, women-owned business, and at the point when I started my business, I was under the age of 40, and so people are like, oh, there's got to be a pot of gold available from the government, and this, there isn't. I mean, I wish, but there isn't. And so really understanding the government is going to potentially give access to funds based on objectives that they have. They want to increase employment, so they're going to give you hiring grants. They want to increase the knowledge base within Canada. They're going to put money towards training. They want companies to export so that they can capture more of a market share internationally. They're going to give you money in export. But notice these are all government-related objectives, right? Gone are the days, and never have I really seen them in the life of this business, where, oh, you are a Black entrepreneur who's starting up a business in clothing. Yeah, here's 10 grand. Do what you want with it. Like, I haven't seen that. There are some smaller startup programs that might allow for like a few $1,000s. We talked about that a little earlier, like $3,500 to go and start your business as a youth. Well, you know how far 3,500 Canadian dollars can go these days, and it's not very far. So really looking at your business strategy, making sure that you're matching those grants to that strategy, and not getting taken up by the shiny object syndrome of like, oh, there's that grant that, is for me to hire an analyst. Oh, I could do that. It's like, well, but are you doing that?
But do you need that?
Do you need it?
Right.
Exactly.
And I think another thing to pay attention to for small businesses that they often are not aware of is a lot of these grants are reimbursement. So you don't just get the money out front. You have to pay for whatever service, whatever the government is saying that we will cover. So the CDAP was like that. Yes. You pay for the skills, for the training. Yeah. You paid for the assessment and all of that, and then you would provide your receipt, and you'd be refunded. So sometimes you also just have to have money up front. Oh yeah. Right. So. Yeah.
And it's great that there are these resources, because the reality is, as a nonprofit organization who works with so many businesses who are similar, you're probably not having to repeat the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But, if you can create a cohort where they're moving together on it and they're getting sales support or marketing support or grant support, that's a better way for them to be able to access that expertise in a trusted manner.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that as well. I mean, a lot of women will come to me and say, well, where are all the grant programs where they'll give me money to either start my business or grow my business? And while there are loan programs, like WeBC is one, Women's Entrepreneurs BC, there are loan programs specifically for women. And there might even be programs specifically for Black entrepreneurs. I'm not as aware of them. But those are repayable contributions back, right?
Exactly.
So you have to pay the loan back. There might be, maybe preferred interest rates. So that will help, but it is money that you got to pay back.
Exactly.
I haven't seen grants that are just like, here's 20 grand.
There's so few.
Do what you want with it. And let me know if you do find those, because I'm always on the lookout. Yeah.
Once in a while, like maybe twice a year, you might see a grant or through a pitch competition, you might see something of that nature.
Yes.
But for the most part, grants are either, like you said, training.
Yep. Hiring. Yeah.
So I think that it's a great understanding, and it's a great place for a business to start and understand, okay, this is where I can use this to build up or reskill my business or reskill myself.
Yes.
Or have some kind of digital adoption into my business.
Right.
But it's not necessarily one where you're going to get a $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 check and they're just like, have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it is still value. I think that's something that a lot of businesses might not think of is imagine if you didn't know how to do marketing. And as a result of you being able to get some free marketing, like in terms of taking a course, you'll understand that better. And now you're able to grow your business. Like it does fuel that growth. And that's the purpose of those programs as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And the employment side, hiring grants.
Yep.
There's nothing like not having to wear all the hats in your business.
Yeah.
It gives you that opportunity to take a breath.
Yes.
Take a bird's eye view and manage your business as opposed to always being in the weeds.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Hiring grants are essential as well.
Well, and it's funny because, we started talking about my history and that is a little bit of my history. My mom and dad were business owners. They owned a grocery store in downtown Vancouver. And I was always really confused, like, why can't we go on vacation together? Why does someone always have to be at the store? Why can't we hire someone? And so that really propelled me to be like, what is that work-life balance that we all look for as entrepreneurs? Like that cool thing that people are, you don't have to do 9 to 5, but you're now doing 9 to 9.
Yeah.
And, having that balance, being able to hire someone, giving them a job opportunity, you're able to rest a little bit. That allows you to replenish. And then, like you said, work on the business as opposed to being in the business all the time. Those are key things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs forget. And so these wage subsidies can help offset some of the costs. We won't pay for everything. We're not talking about...
But every dollar counts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every dollar can then go towards either, your pocket or going back in and reinvesting in other things like inventory, rent, whatever it might be. Yeah.
We have programs such as the CanExport program to help us.
Right.
We have the Trade Commissioner Service to help businesses look at export opportunities. We have Export Development Canada.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about the opportunity for businesses to utilize the CanExport SME program?
Sure. So the program came about, kind of 2017, 2018. And the intention was to help small businesses in Canada be able to export. So it might be a area or region in Europe where they've gone and had like a little bit of success. Or completely nothing, no sales done in that regard. So the opportunity is to offset some of those costs because there's a risk there. You go into a new market, you don't know who the target market is, you don't know enough about what you need to know. So it will pay for things like attending trade shows. It'll pay for you to travel to those markets that you want to explore. It will allow you to do digital marketing, maybe even pay for translations costs. Recently, it'll pay for things like IP protection, which is really important. I think a lot of small businesses forget, like, I've got a company named Apple. Okay, you go to the US, you're going to get sued. So, what does that actually look like? And then things like lead generation and maybe even some consultants to help you understand what are the legalities of a sales contract in that market. So I love the program. I think it's very valuable for small businesses.
Right.
There are some thresholds to note. So you have to be at least $100,000 in revenues in the last fiscal year to qualify if you're a small business. You cannot have more than 10% of those revenues in that target market that you're looking at. So if you want to go to France or if you want to go to Nigeria, you can't have more than 10% of your total revenues from last year being in that particular market. Because that
it's based to foster new market exploration.
Totally. Yeah. Either that or growth in a particular market where you've already got a little bit of traction, but it's not majority of, your export sales per se. So the opportunity is like for these businesses to go and apply, be able to look at either setting up a trade show booth, maybe going and visiting potential new clients in that particular region. Distribution meetings. Yeah, any of that. And get them kind of going on it. So it used to be a 75%, 25% cost share. It's now 50-50. It is a very oversubscribed program. And what I mean by that is they have thousands of applications streaming in, because I think Canadians recognize that Canada is great, but there's only so many people in this country, and the opportunity is really to capture more market share outside of Canada. So Africa, Caribbean, like any of those places, the ability to go and showcase your products or your services, and it can be services too, right? So if you could be a marketing firm and you want to target, doing sales in that particular market, you could be a technology firm, you want to get more subscribers for your technology out there. Those are things that you could absolutely do as well. But it is important that this is part of your strategy for growth. And I think what's difficult often for small businesses is the funds have to be paid. Like you apply, you get approved, then you start paying for some of these things, and then you have to, essentially front those costs. So you're not going to necessarily get like a $50,000 drop in your bank account and you just spend it along the way. So that means you have to have the matching funds. So they give you 50%, they give you dollar for dollar. So if you go to a trade show, it costs $10,000 for you to go. $5,000 is what you have to contribute. $5,000 the government will reimburse you.
But you have to pay the entire thing in advance. Then you submit your receipts. And then you get reimbursed. And you also, there are goals around this, right? So it's not just like, oh, why do you want to go to, I don't know, why do you want to go to Nigeria? And you're like, well, I have family there. It's like, that's not going to work. So really taking a look at exactly what part of that market you feel there could be traction. Maybe your product or services is super unique. They don't sell it there. You're getting inquiries, being able to speak to that and actually having a little bit of an export plan. So how you do business in Canada might be very different than how you do business in Africa. And so what is that plan? Who's involved in it? What are the expenses that make sense there? Maybe digital marketing isn't going to make sense there. Maybe it's, print advertising or TV advertising or radio ads. So understanding the market, you do want to identify this information in advance and not just stitch together an application and be like, okay, let's see what happens. But really thinking thoroughly. Be thoughtful through it. Have a game plan. Do you have to have an international development business plan in order to apply?
It helps. I mean, I think it depends a little bit of how much you know that market. Sometimes I would come across newcomers in Canada where they're like, I grew up in that market. Well, that's a lot of intel. You have family there, you have friends there, that's great. You could probably tell some of the brands that are competing with you, but in those marketplaces, how well are they doing? What is the risk of going into that market? Maybe it's, I don't know, that they like foreign products. So you need to be able to mitigate those risks, or maybe shipping is going to be a concern. So having an idea of what that plan is, and then where are those gaps? Is it legal? Is it, and then being able to identify, okay, well, we're going to do some testing in social media out there, and we're going to use the funds to do that because we don't know how well that's going to go, but we see the data and it looks like it's picking up there. Those are things that helps the adjudicator identify, okay, you've been thoughtful about it. You're not just throwing mud against the wall and seeing what sticks.
That's fantastic. And I think it's more and more important that we start to prepare ourselves. So if someone's watching this now and they're like, okay, I haven't made $100,000 in my last revenues for last year. Or I don't meet another part of the requirements. Do you have any tips on how to start to ready yourself for an application, maybe for future years?
I think it's really important to know that if you're a solopreneur or a very small, we call them micro businesses, so those under 10 employees, you're running your business here in Canada, Are you able to then also have the ability to take yourself out of here and go to a trade show for a week or two in that country and then actually go and open up that marketplace? So capacity is something that I think you could be building up. What that looks like for businesses is making sure you have all your processes down. If you leave your store, you know, stock's going to come on this day. This is how things are going to happen, you know, and making sure that somebody else who can substitute for you not being in the store.
Right.
That's important.
Okay.
I think also building some initial relationships. So whether it is like distribution partners that you can reach out to a year in advance of applying for it. And the benefit of that is to say, hey, we've done some of our homework. We've reached out to some of these people and there is interest. We've already sent samples and they're happy with them. And so now we want to go into the next layer where we're doing like a pop-up shop or we're working with them to help us with our distribution.
Right.
So those are things that I think are really helpful. Also scoping out who the competitors are. I mean, I think the last thing you want to do is like go and be like, oh, I'm the next greatest thing here in Canada.
Yeah.
You go there and it's like every corner is your product, but made by a competitor. So really understanding what that looks like. And now I am going to say geopolitical risks, right? So trade concerns, shipping concerns, the ability for you to fulfill orders is something that's real. You know, can you get inventory to the point where if it's shipping by ocean, can you sit on that inventory for 2 months and not sell a thing and be okay? And so those are certain things that you can maybe prep for. And what that might look like is maybe there's somebody who will help you with that distribution and buy it in bulk so that you don't have to incur all those costs, you know, as they're being sold. And then just legal things like your IP protection. Do you need to make sure that your product name is protected? Do you need to make sure your company name is protected? Could you are you registered with the right website so that you can sell your products there and it's reflecting in the same way that it would reflect here in Canada? So these are all, I'm going to say some of it's sales prep, some of it is marketing prep, some of it's testing. Like if digital ads is what you're going for, do an ad campaign there. See what happens, because you don't want to be dumping $50,000 into ads and then realizing, oh, I got nothing out of it.
Yeah, so that was really great and a lot of fantastic information. And I think that businesses should now start to think about how they can employ using grants as a tool for strategies over a number of years. So can you speak a little bit about how a small business can utilize a grant and think about it as a tool for growth over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's really important as a small business to be looking at grants with some longevity, right? I think often a lot of businesses will look at grants very transactionally. So they'll be like, oh, I got this grant. That's good. That's it. And then, oh, there's probably not another one, and forget about the fact that there are these resources available. So similarly, as we talked about building a grant strategy, I would do it kind of every year. I would also look at it maybe partway through the year. So if something happens in your business where you've got a big order and now you're positioned for more growth, you're not going to wait until next January to go and figure out how did that change your grant strategy. So maybe if that happens in June, then in July, you're like, okay, how many people do I need to hire to fulfill that order? Or what is the growth trajectory that I have? So leveraging grants throughout the year is really important. Now, it's difficult for people because often they'll go and look for grants once. Like Jan 1, it's new year.
What's out there?
What's out there? There's got to be money out there. And so this is where, having some diligence or a tool like what we built, and it doesn't even have to be what we built, but even Googling or looking up what are the opportunities is important throughout the year. So I often will say grants are not about the now. And the benefit of that is as you're growing, there are certain programs you can leverage as a startup. There are fewer grants because you have to get through those growing pains. But then as you grow into growth mode, there's other programs and then it grows from there. So don't assume that the first grants that you use are the ones that you have to use throughout the life of your business. There'll be new ones that will come out and they launch throughout the year. So that's the other thing to know as well.
Are there tools that you would recommend in addition to your tech tool that are useful throughout the year? Or do you just recommend Googling and just getting out there and just seeing what is available? And just understanding as a business owner.
Excuse me. Okay.
That understanding as a business owner, you have to take the time to be able to go and look. Or have someone available to do it for you. But someone's got to do that work.
Yeah. And so that's why we built what we built. Because we recognize that a lot of businesses, like a store that is in retail, they don't necessarily have the acumen or can keep that talent in their store. Maybe last year they had someone who's administrative and they could go and find it. And this year this person's on mat leave or has decided to leave the organization. And so you've lost that talent. So that's part of the reason why we like what we built, because we feel like it really addresses what businesses need.
Which and it drops the information right into your inbox.
Yes. That's key, isn't it? Because you want only to surface the grants that are relevant for your business. If you're in retail, you don't need the grants that are related to forestry or to oil and gas. You want the programs that are actually relevant to your business. And sure, there might be some programs that you can't use right away. That's okay. But keep those in mind, like the CanExport. Great question that you asked about how can you prepare for that? Well, maybe you can't use a hiring grant right now, but maybe you could in a few months. So how do you prepare for that? Make sure you have your legalities all done, your work safe workers compensation, making sure that you've got a payroll account, making sure that you have, a software that can run your payroll, things like that. So these are things that I think as you build your business, understanding that there are grants that can be leveraged throughout the life of the business, and they may not come in the shape and form that you expect, but they are available out there. That I think is really key.
And what is your software called?
It's called Get Granted.
Get Granted.
Yeah.
And you can subscribe for 1 year.
You can you can subscribe for a year. We just added in an extra amount of support so that you can actually apply, have us also help you, support you in applying for a particular grant, which wasn't available last year.
Okay.
And we're listening to what users are asking for. And sometimes it's like, well, I can do this one, but I don't know how to do this one.
Yeah.
And so then we're helping them. But the idea is to really guide them in a way. There's best practices. There's very simple summaries of the grant. So it's like bullet points as opposed to what I call governmentalese.
Yeah.
It's like government jargon that not all small businesses are accustomed to. But we read this stuff all the time. So we know exactly what are the bullet points to extract. And then the application link is right on there. If you want to do it on your own, awesome. If you need our help, we're here for support.
And how long does it take generally to onboard onto the system?
Minutes. So you just, you fill in your email, you fill in your industry, you tell us a little bit about your business, and then right there and then you can subscribe right away. So we tried to make that process relatively easy so that you can get your first list of grants within a couple of minutes of signing up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. This has been really, really great.
Yes.
I think this information is so needed, not just by small businesses, micro businesses, the solopreneurs. It's just such a foggy area, and we get so many questions about grants and eligibility. So you've really demystified a lot of it, and I thank you so much for coming on chatting with me today.
Thanks, Marissa.